at the Seder, towards the end of the Seder, just before the end of Magid, just before the Dayenu, so the Haggadah brings the three opinions, Rabbi Yosef Haglili, Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Akiva, who argue about something that seems to be entirely moot and irrelevant. What's the whole argument? They're all arguing about exactly how many plagues were visited upon the Mitzrayim in Egypt and how many plagues when they crossed the Red Sea. So they all use the same template in their conclusion. What's the template? The template is that the plagues in Mitzrayim are described by Paro's magicians, the Chatumim, as, and they said finally, Etz Belikim, is the finger of God. So that's the symbol. The symbol for the plagues in Mitzrayim, the 10 plagues, is Hashem's finger. What happens when the Yidden crossed the Red Sea? So there, the Yisrael and the people saw Es Hayod HaGdolah, the great hand. So the symbol by Kriyas Yamsuf, by the crossing of the Red Sea, is Hashem's hand. The symbol of Yitzias Mitzrayim, of the plagues, is a finger. So the conclusion is that whatever happened in Mitzrayim, it's 5 times more by Kriyas Yamsuf, 5 fingers on a hand. 1 finger, 5 fingers. Just by the way, a famous question, I'm going to leave it unanswered right now. How is it Moishe Rabbeinu's name is not mentioned in that God? Moishe Rabbeinu, gewaltige Geschichte, should be front and center in the whole story. He's not mentioned once, except here in passing. It's in passing. Because when the Baal HaGodet from the Medrash, the Mechilta, brings by Kriyas Yamsuf, it was a hand, he brings the whole quote. That the Yidden saw the great hand that Hashem did to the Egyptians. He could have stopped the quote there. Because all he wanted to bring out is that by Kriyas Yamsuf was a hand. It concludes, Vayaminu b'Hashem v'Moshe Avdei. And they believed in Hashem and Moshe's servant. Why even bring it into the quote? It's not germane to the text here. But it's kind of smuggled in. Moshe Rabbeinu smuggled in over here, but very powerfully. They believed in Moshe and Hashem, his servant. Which, by the way, I'm just going to point out, you have a famous medrash. It doesn't say, Vayaminu b'Hashem, they believed in Hashem. Vayaminu b'Moshe, they believed in Moshe. The word belief twice. It's one. Vayaminu b'Hashem v'Moshe Avdei. So the medrash says, they believed in God and Moshe's servant. The medrash says, that he who believes in Hashem believes in Moishe, and he believes in Moishe believes in Hashem. You cannot separate the two. It's one emunah. That's a very powerful thing. Very powerful, but I'm just pointing out it's kind of smuggled in. It doesn't have to be in the text. So we haven't answered our question, why isn't Moshe Rabbeinu mentioned as the whole narrative of Yitzias Mitzrayim in a very obvious way? I'm just going to tell you the essence of the answer is less is more. And where he is mentioned is here in this very powerful reference. Anyway, not for now. So what are we saying? So what are the 3 opinions? So based on another pasuk. So there's a first opinion, Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi's opinion is very simple and straightforward. How many plagues were there in Mitzrayim? 10. Now that's called the finger of God. So the hand of God is by Kriyas Yamsuf. So 50. So there were 10 plagues in Mitzrayim and 50 by the Yom, by the sea. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva both quote a pasuk in Tehillim. And the pasuk in Tehillim is describing what happened in Mitzrayim. Now the pasuk says, we'll just make it very brief, the pasuk says that Hashem sent against the Mitzrayim his fierce anger, fury, wrath, torment, a dispatch of destructive angels. So Rabbi Eliezer says that the opening words, his fierce anger, is introductory. But then comes 4 descriptions: fury, wrath, torment, a dispatch of destructive angels. That's all this 4 descriptions describing what? Each of the 10 plagues, to tell us that each plague was 4-pronged. Each plague was 4-pronged. So in Egypt, really there was 10 times 4, 40. 40 times 5, again, that's all the finger, yields 200 by the sea. Rabbi Akiva says, looking at the same pasuk, he includes the introductory description. He sent against them his fierce anger. That's one of the descriptions, not just an intro. So he concludes that there was actually 5 components to each plague in Egypt. So each plague was 5-pronged, had 5 components. So 10 times 5, that's 50 in Egypt. Again, the model, 5 times more, yielding 250 by the sea. That's the big argument. So the big question is, what? First of all, it happened already. What difference does it make how many they were? What's the point of the whole argument? What's the point of the argument? And most importantly, what's the message to us in our personal going out of our own Egypt? That's really the whole night. The whole night has to be our personal Yetzias Mitzrayim. What's the message to us? So we'll begin the answer now. Friends, let's first understand this number. The numbers. Rabbi Yitzchak really says each plague was just one-dimensional. Rabbi Eliezer says each plague was 4-dimensional. Rabbi Akiva says each plague was 5-dimensional. Where do these numbers come from? Yeah, we looked at the verses. Once you quote the verse in Tehillim, is there 4 descriptions and an intro, or 5 descriptions? But why are there 4 or 5 descriptions in the verse? Let's get to the bottom line. So the Rebbe explains, that's because all of life is made up of 4 elements and an essence. Everything. What are the 4 elements? All of life is made up of the 4 elements of fire, air, water, and earth. We don't mean it literally, but it means oxygen, hydrogen, whatever those components are in their scientific terms. And there's a 5th element. The 5th element is the atom, the core essence of all things, which is common to gas, solid, liquids, whatever it is, all made up of atoms. That's the 5th element. So here, hence, is the discussion here. Rabbi Yossi says each plague was 1-dimensional. What he's saying is that each plague shattered Egypt externally, didn't penetrate to the inner workings. But we're saying, friends, now, let's get this clear. There are 3 dimensions. External, whatever it is, gas, solid, liquid, whatever the plague hit the Nile, it hit the animals, it hit the crops, whatever it touched, there's the external dimension that you see to the naked eye. Then there's the internal dimension that has 4 components. Then there's the essence, the 5th dimension, the core, we'll call it the atom. How deeply did God strike or purge or cleanse Mitzrayim? Rabbi Yossi says the external. He says, therefore, each plague is 1-dimensional. The sea, that was already different. We won't talk about the sea right now because the sea is a hidden world, and that was a deeper cleansing. We're talking now the initial one, in Mitzrayim. We're going out of Egypt tonight. So Rabbi Yossi says external. Rabbi Eliezer says, no, each plague penetrated to the inner machinations, to put up the microscope deeper, and there are 4 elements there, and therefore, each plague was 4-dimensional. Rabbi Akiva says, in addition to the external, in addition to the internal, the plague penetrated to the very essence, 5th level, a complete purging of the core essence of Egypt. The core essence, but now we're going to soon translate this on a personal level. Now, what we're seeing now is that there's no argument. There are 3 levels. The discussion here is really, as we'll see at the end, to go out of our personal Egypt. Is it enough external? Do you have to go to an internal redemption, exodus, cleansing, purging of our own Mitzrayim, our own chometz, our own ego within? Or Rabbi Akiva, the ultimate, he wants a fundamental, essential transformation of who we are. By the way, we're running ahead of ourselves. Let's first introduce the next thing, a fascinating thing. If you look at the page in front of you, we've basically done this, right? We've done, friends, we just looked at this, and this, right? Those columns there. Yeah? Let's look at Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Let's look at him right now. So he says it's 1 times 1, each plague was 1, so that's 10 in total, times 5, 50 at the sea. Next column, going horizontal, purging of Mitzrayim is only The Shvir of Mitzrayim is chitzonius, external form. Function. Now the next column. The same three sages have three different views as to what degree we have to divest ourselves of chametz on Pesach. Three views. What is the Torah's mandate? Look at Rabbi Yosef Aglili. Rabbi Yosef Aglili says that the isur of chametz, the prohibition, is really only eating. Other benefits are permissible. You can own it in essence. You can benefit from it, give it to your animals to eat. You can deal with it. You can do business with chametz. But the question is, the Torah itself says you may not own it. So look in the brackets. The Torah prohibition of possession of chametz and the obligation to remove it is itself merely a protective measure. That's the Rabbeinu Nissim Daran explains. In the opinion of Rabbi Yosef Aglili, it's an unusual thing. Usually the sages give the protective measures. Here, because it's a strong prohibition to eat chametz, you cut off. It's not like any other non-kosher food where it's a much stricter punishment. That therefore the Torah itself tells you, don't own it. So you won't come to what we really don't want is to eat. So Rabbi Yossi says that the Torah prohibition in essence is only eating. This is consistent. External. What's food for? To eat. It's consistent with the nature of the plagues in Egypt that struck Egypt / chametz, ego, yetzer hara, externally. Clear? Rabbi Eliezer, he says that the plague struck deeper, they internally. So he says that the Torah prohibition is not simply eating the external function of food, but even using it in other forms, not the obvious form, the external form. One may not benefit from chametz on Pesach from the Torah perspective. That's the initial prohibition. So what does he say you have to do with the chametz? You've got to either you cast it to the wind or throw it in the ocean. That's it. It's still around, but you can benefit from it. That's sufficient. It can still exist in essence, as long as you've taken it apart so much that you can't even have a benefit that's not the external one, which is food. Can't have any benefit. That's the Torah mandate. But it can exist somewhere. It's there. But because you can't benefit, that's enough of a disassociation. And Rabbi Akiva says, in the Gemara says in Pesachim, he holds no. The only way, when the Torah says destroy chametz, it means actual destroy, ein bir chametz ela sreifa, like Rabbi Yehuda, that the only way to destroy chametz is burning. That's the ultimate destruction. He's consistent with his view about the plagues. Rabbi Eliezer says the plagues penetrated the inner dimension of Egypt, but stopped short of the essence. So he says that the prohibition of chametz is render it completely useless, benefitless, but in essence, it can remain, doesn't bother anybody, can't benefit from it. But Rabbi Akiva says it was a 5-pronged, not just the 4 elements, but the essence, the atom. Therefore, he says what? When it comes to chametz, the only way, what Torah is mandating is utter and total destruction. So very nice. So far, I've explained their views about the plagues, how they mirror and are consistent with their view, their halachic views about to what degree we have to disassociate from chametz. Rabbi Yosef Aglili says the Torah says disassociate externally. Rabbi Eliezer says disassociate even internally. And Rabbi Akiva says renounce the essence of chametz. Again, is it just eating? Or is it also any kind of benefit? Or is it just can't exist altogether? Now, the main thing is how this translates what? In Avodas Hashem in the service of God. That's the final column. Is everybody's with me? If you're able to print this
yes.
out. I don't know if you can you'll have time at the Seder. People it's a bit long to give over the Seder. But this is something you could share at one of the day meals. Or if you have time at the Seder itself, wonderful. Anyway, if you print it out, it'll be a good reminder. So I'm encouraging you to do that. So friends, you can see on the right-hand column, just glancing, you can see mode of divine service, avodah. So there's 3 levels of avodah. There's the Beinani. We'll just look at the top headings. That's the ground entry level is Beinani. Then there's a high avodah, the avodah of the tzaddik. And then there's the highest avodah, the avodah of the Baal Tshuva, which even a tzaddik can do, which we'll see in a moment. Because classically, a tzaddik doesn't have to do tshuva, he does a sin. We're going to see that there's the true teshuvah is even for a tzaddik. And that's Rabbi Akiva, but let's go step by step, and most important is Rabbi Yosef Glili. He's the first opinion that's quoted, because this is the number one mandate. Friends, they're obviously not arguing. They're not saying, my way, you're wrong, you're wrong. There's no such thing in Torah. This is one of the great, as we've seen many times, beautiful revelations / revolutions of Hasidus, particularly our Rebbe. He takes an argument of the sages, the Chachamim, the Tanoim, Amoraim, Rishonim, Achronim. On the surface, it's this number, that number, they argue. On a deeper level, the levels, they're all harmonious. Level 1, and a deeper level, a deeper level. And they're mapping out for us the roadmap for us to progress in our service of Hashem. You start with the basic, and then we go deeper, and then we go deeper. And that's the order. First, we have to aspire to Rabbi Yossi. And then we have to work on Rabbi Eliezer, and then Rabbi Akiva. And we have to wait. It can be simultaneously. But they're in order of what's foundational, what's critical. So Rabbi Yossi says what? That the plague struck only the external dimension of Mitzrayim. He says the basic fundamental prohibition of chametz is not to eat. But that's what food is for. Food. What does it mean in service of Hashem? Beinani. What's the mandate of Hashem? What's the mandate of us every year on Pesach, for that matter, every day to some degree, because we always mention the Yetzias Mitzrayim daily, is behavioral change. Moishe b'poyel. External connection. Why is it external? I don't feel any different. Okay, but we can be the master of our behavior. This is Tanya's, the whole foundation of Tanya is that you may not feel inspired, but you can act the way you should be. We all have the ability to control change the way you feel. That's a very big avodah. That's Rabbi Eliezer will see in a moment, to actually work on our feelings. But action, nobody can do. You can write the check, you can keep Shabbat, you can do it. You can do it. In a way, he is the most difficult, because if I don't feel like doing it, I still do it. That's incredible. But the fact is, we can all do that. In a way, it's the highest avodah, in a way, because I'm not inspired, I'm still doing it. But at any rate, this action, behavior is accessible no matter what level I'm at, no matter how the Yitzhak is burning, no matter how the passion, no matter how lazy, no matter how arrogant, no matter how desire for what I'm looking for. I can control my behavior. And that's the number one Pesach. So Pesach is saying that for a real Pesach, there's got to be a decision going forward in some action area of our life, some behavior. Till now I used to do this, I'm going to stop. Well, till now I didn't do what I should, I'm going to start doing it. Something. That's going out of Mitzrayim. A behavioral change. Breaking. That's Rabbi Yossi. It shattered the external Mitzrayim. There's some area of my life where I resisted. I said, God, sorry, I'm doing what I want to do, and I'm going to let him in. That's the foundation. This is hinted to in his name, because Rabbi Yossi, first of all, Yossi is not even Hebrew. It's not the holy tongue. It's Aramaic. So again, it's very external. Hebrew is like something internal and very spiritual. We're not asking at this level to become a spiritual person, but behave like a mensch. Behave like a Jew. That you could do. So that's why his name Yossi adds up to, it's 10 and 6 and 60 and 10, 86, which has the same numerical value as Teva, nature, Elohim. Elohim is the name of Hashem, where we're talking about God's actual behavior. Bereshis bar Elohim, God created behavior. Teva, your Teva as in not inside, your Teva, your behavior in practicality. Says Rabbi Yossi, that's his very name. It's all about behavior. That's number one. Then comes Rabbi Eliezer and he says, that's the foundation, that's the starting point, 100%. But we can't stop there. It's not enough just to behave like a yid. Feel internally. When you give tzedakah, it's not enough just to write the check. The empathy, you've got to feel. I've been just listening to a story yesterday of I don't know, this boy's an Australian kid. Okay, very briefly, there's an organization in New York and now in Australia, another place called Aliyah. My Rochel volunteers and works in this Aliyah, and what this really, it's an organization for kids born into from homes that have lost their way. It's unbelievable work that they do. My Rochel in Crown Heights, and no secrets here in Crown Heights, there's hundreds of kids like this, maybe more. So she deals with girls, older girls, and they have all these divisions. So there's a young man that I just heard a podcast of him who started such an organization in Melbourne, in Australia. And what was the turning point in his life? He comes from home and everything. So the turning point in life was that he was once having a talk. He went to a yeshiva, one of the Chabad yeshivas, and he said, whenever my parents, were sent from one yeshiva to the other, shuttled around, and I used to make the rabbis crazy, and he went through some trauma in his life, and where is God, and how could there be a God, whatever. And that's what he would challenge. And usually he says, he would get, answers, the pat answers, we don't understand that, whatever they would say. He says, in one of the yeshivas that he went, and that was a turning point, he's telling the rabbi, they're going for a walk. And the rabbi is quiet, he's not answering. So he was like, looking a bit awkward, and he's not speaking. And as he keeps on walking, they're going for a walk. He sees the rabbi's crying. He's a young guy, young mashpia. He was crying and could not speak. He's hearing my story. He was crying. He said that changed his life. That changed his life. Where not just the words were said to him, and there were no words said to him, but this fella felt his pain. So this Rabbi Eliezer is saying it's not enough just to do the right thing. That's the starting point. But you have to work on your inside to feel, to love God, to be in awe of Hashem, to love a fellow Yid, to be in awe of your fellow Yid. Like in a husband. Rabbi Yossi says number one is behave like a husband. That's number one. This is what husbands do. This is what husbands don't do. You don't say, you do say. You got obligations. That's exuber. Got to provide. Rabbi Eliezer says, yeah, but she wants your heart. And that's got to be invested. Feel, empathy, love, and so on. That is Rabbi Eliezer. So that's hinted to. You look at the words there, love of God, midrash belev, transformed, redirected, animal soul, inner connection. So it's a Yiddishkeit that you love and you're in awe of, and you're working on your feelings and instead of enjoying it and loving sinful and materialistic things, develop a love and a pleasure and an enjoyment in spirituality, in learning a piece of Gemara, in doing a mitzvah. That's where you've got to develop a feeling for it. That's also hinted to Eliezer, God is my help. First and foremost, Eliezer, God is my help. It's a personal relationship, not just behaviorally. Eliezer, God is my help. In the very name is implicit a relationship, and that he feels the presence of Hashem. God is helping him. This is more than just behavior. Rabbi Yossi. The name Eliezer is expressing an emotional relationship. So now you can be thinking, that's it. What could be more than this? He's behaving like a husband, like a chassid, and he's invested emotionally in his relationship with his wife, with his God, with his fellow Jew. Comes Rabbi Akiva, Gival, Balshuva. New existence. Just look at the words here on the page. Etzem, self-sacrifice. Rabbi Akiva was descendant of Gerim, of converts. He was a Balshuva. What does this mean? Rabbi Akiva says, no, it's not enough to give your emotion. You've got to give your core self. What does it mean to give your core self? I'm giving everything, giving my heart, giving my actions. So we have running out of time very briefly. Rabbi Akiva's level is like this. The first two levels, and this is, it means that Mashiach is going to teach the tzaddikim to do tshuva. It's a statement in the Zohar. That's his biggest achievement. Also, he'll come and he will return tzaddikai, the tzaddikim b'tshuvta in tshuva. Tzaddik has to do tshuva. We're talking about a real tzaddik who doesn't sin. So what's the tshuva? The answer is the tshuva tzaddik is this: because the tzaddik loves Yiddishkeit, he loves it. This is enjoyment and so on. So on some degree, it's self-fulfilling. It's self-fulfilling. The teshuva of the tzaddik is, and it's a very hard level to reach, is I'm motivated. I don't need motivation, but to do so with a complete surrender because that's what you want. Not just I enjoy and love you, but I enjoy and love you because it's you. That's a whole different level. The enjoyment and the pleasure that I have in this is only because it's you. In other words, he learns Gemara, he learns Torah. It's beautiful. Once you develop a taste for it, Chassidus is beautiful and Gemara is beautiful and it's so satisfying. But then what's the Rabbi Akiva? No, I don't need anything. Why am I enjoying this? Because you want me to enjoy it. Because you want me to enjoy this. That's a complete surrender. That's the ultimate. That's giving the core self. It's not that I have now taken my heart and emotion and directed it to you, and that's why I'm now finding my fulfillment. That's Rabbi Eliezer. That's an incredible level. I'm not enjoying anything. I'm enjoying Yiddishkeit and I'm enjoying the beauty of marriage and Shabbos. But then the core essence is, it's not about your enjoyment either. It's because he wants you to enjoy. It's completely selfless. That's completely transformative. We need to talk more about this, but it's such an elusive level. On the other hand, it's shaykhs to all of us. If we're saying this at the Seder, it means it talks to us. And that's Rabbi Akiva. He embodied this. He embodies complete transformation at the core level. He comes from converts. He's the Bar Tshuva. And Akev means a heel. A heel is, on the one hand, the lowest part of the body that has just completely surrendered. It's easier to put the heel in hot water than the head. He's complete surrender, but it's not. He draws a parallel like to the first one, kind of. But what he's surrendering and giving is everything. Heart, behavior, everything. In the simple word, Rabbi Akiva it's about you, totally. And a readiness to completely rethink and transform constantly everything I'm doing is because if it's about you, then is this enough? Never. There's never a fulfillment at this level. It's constant. And that's considered Rabbi Akiva, Chometz, complete, 5-pronged plague, a complete transformation down to the core. It's got to be the ego completely destroyed. And then what's left is only you. A very lofty level. So friends, just in summary, so why are we reading these opinions? It's not just a debate. How many plagues were there? It's a tremendous discussion and a roadmap for us in our personal going out of Mitzrayim. The first thing is we got to work on our behavior. Then we got to work on our feelings of empathy and feeling and love and awe. And it's all concurrent. And then Rabbi Akiva, Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice, complete and absolute devotion, when the feelings and the love and the enjoyment and the pleasure are all selfless, because it's what you want to get. It's what you want. It's about you and you alone and nothing else. All right, friends, have a wonderful week. Shabbos Avadol. I guess next week we're not going to. Next week is out of Pesach. I don't know. We'll see. We could learn and see why not. Okay. All right, friends. Have a wonderful week and a good Shabbos.
Thank you very much. Good Shabbos.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. Good Shabbos, everyone.
Shabbos.